Hey everybody. I told Jack I wanted the mic off the podium and I was going to walk up and down here like a televangelist. I hope you're all doing well. It's so good to see all of you. We've had quite a winter so far, and it doesn't look like anybody's any worse for wear. So welcome back to the Shenandoah Valley for those of you who are traveling, and it's good to see some of you out of your homes for those of you who actually live here. And I'm so excited about today's event, and it's a wonderful way for us all to get together and celebrate this amazing milestone, not only for the country, but for the world, the 250th anniversary of the country. So I think the last time we were all together, it wasn't that year, so happy birthday to all of you. This is a really amazing year, and hopefully Americans come together to celebrate it in a big way. And we're going to kick that off, we kicked it off yesterday with those of you who were on the tours. I think we had 55, 58 people, something like that, on the tours yesterday. And so thank you for being a part of that if you were. And I understand that the talk last night was phenomenal. We got all kinds of great comments about that. And we've got a great lineup of speakers today. I just wanted to give you a couple of announcements and thank a couple of people. I want to remind all of you who are members and longtime friends of the Battlefields Foundation, don't forget that the national conference is right around the corner. This conference was sold out. So don't think that just because we've been hanging out together for the last 12 years, you're going to have a seat, because I don't know that that's the case. So please, don't call us 2 weeks before the conference and say, but I've been a member since 1998. There's nothing we'll be able to do about it. We've got a lot of interest in. Oh, hey, thanks. The question was, who the hell are you? I'm Dean Martin. My name's Kevin Walker, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation. And it's our foundation that's hosting you this weekend. How many of you here are members of the Battlefields Foundation? Okay. The rest of you, go ahead and validate your parking out front, and you can just leave now. We are extremely dependent on our membership, so thank you all for being here. All of our friends who are new to us or new to our events, thank you very much for being here. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I did not encourage you to look into us and look into what we do and become involved in some way. We've got some of our most esteemed members of our volunteer corps here, and we've got some of our most major donors of all time here in the room, and we have so many members here. So we're a preservation family, and it's working out pretty well. And since we do have some new people here, just hitting the highlights. National Historic District was formed by Congress in 1996, but we're a private foundation that runs the National Historic District for Congress. We have more than 1,000 members. We have more donors than that. And we've saved almost 8,000 acres of battlefield here in the valley over the last couple of decades. Jack Owens, over here on your right. Jack is an up-and-coming young battlefield professional that a lot of you have seen since he was my height. He's doing a lot. He's got a lot more land projects on the books, so there's a lot of exciting things coming. And since I'm on that pitch, it's like I staged you. It's like I put you there to ask the question, who are you? But I just need to say, if you need to renew your membership, if you would like to increase your membership, or if you are not a member, Kirsten will be here all day long. Hey, Mark. Kirsten will be here all day long, and you can do that right here. And membership is the most important campaign we do every year, because without membership, your tickets to these events would be a heck of a lot more expensive. And without membership, the grease would not be in the wheels of any of our preservation work. It is imperative that our membership program stay strong. So with that, let me move on and just say we've got an amazing lineup of speakers, and none of them would have been possible, this entire conference would not have been possible without Dr. John Moss, our good friend, Shenandoah Guard member, longtime friend of the Battlefields Foundation. And he is the originator of this event, the brains behind this event. And he roped in Scott Patchen, who you all know as well. And he and Scott said, hey, why don't you all do a Revolutionary War themed conference? Maybe we'll be French and Indian and Revolutionary War. And we started the class over, and we said, sure, great, it's fine, but you have to do it. So they did, and they did an amazing job. We had a wonderful conference last year, and this one is already off to a start that might even put it better than the last year's conference, and we can't thank them enough. Completely volunteer, complete time away from their family, their jobs, to put this whole thing together. So we owe both of them a round of applause. Make sure during the breaks that you take a look at the tables back there. A lot of our authors are here. I'm sure you can con them into signing the books for you. A lot of us really like that when that happens. Please ask us any questions throughout the day. Don't forget, Kirsten's here for membership. With that, I'll turn this over to my good friend, Dr. Moss.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Kevin is correct that after I made the suggestion for last year's program and this year's program, I was instantly the committee chairman of those programs. So I have not made any suggestions in about 18 to 20 months. But not making any more. Everything's going fine, Kevin. Don't worry about it. All right, my name is John Moss. I'm a historian and educator at the National Museum of the United States Army in Fort Belvoir, Virginia. How many of you have been to the Army Museum? Okay, wow, that's great. How many of you not been there? Okay, shame on you. Okay, it is a free museum. Free parking, free admission, so we hope to see you there. Today, though, I'm in my role here with the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation, and as Kevin said, we have a great lineup coming up. We are going to, in this program that was at your table, at your seats when you got here, we have a little bit of a hard stop, but we have a lot of a hard stop at the end of the day. So we're gonna stick to the schedule as much as we can. The speakers here will be able to talk with you in between sessions if we don't have enough time for Q&A, but we welcome you to have these conversations throughout the day. Okay, our first speaker is a friend of mine from a long time, Rob Orrison. And he is going to speak about opening shots, which is Lexington and Concord. He has written about that recently in a great book. Rob received a bachelor's degree in historic preservation at Longwood University and a master's degree in public history from George Mason University. He serves as a division manager for the Prince William County, Virginia Office of Historic Preservation. He is the co-author of A Single Blow, The Battles of Lexington and Concord, in the beginning of the American Revolution, April 19, 1775. And he has written or co-written a number of books on the Civil War. And he also has a great volume in the emerging Revolutionary War series on the Battle of Camden. So without further ado, welcome Rob.
All right, John has warned me several times, do not go long. But I have to talk about April 1975 to March 1776, so we will do our best. Yes, I do work in Prince William County. I will take all data center questions after my presentation. Whenever I give a talk and I introduce where I work professionally, that's always where it goes. So this is a great organization. As a preservationist myself, trying to preserve battlefields in Northern Virginia, this is the bellwether of all preservation groups. So the staff, members, everything, it's an honor to be here to talk about Boston, but it's always great to be in the Valley. So real quick, September 1774, John's already scared. I'm not even starting at 75. Thomas Gage Wright, Lord Germain, affairs here are worse than even in the time of the Stamp Act. I don't mean in Boston or throughout the entire country. The New England provinces, as I may say, are in arms. No people are more determined for a civil war. Now, my talk today will go over a lot of what Gage does right and wrong, but Gage nails the situation perfectly. In 74, when he gets to Boston, he understands that he's in a very bad predicament. And so what I'm going to do today is talk about the lead up to April 19th, cover the events really quick there, and go into Bunker Hill and the evacuation of Boston, March 17th, 1776, which we're about to commemorate, obviously, on St. Patrick's Day in Boston here in a few weeks. So Boston, 1775, this is a map of the city of Boston. It's basically almost an island connected to the mainland with a little net of land here. Obviously, it's very heavily relying on the maritime trade. Boston Harbor is one of the busiest ports in the colonies at the time. There are about 15,000 people living in Boston. That's the third largest city in the colonies, behind New York and Philadelphia. Keep in mind, too, Massachusetts and Boston have different world charters than what Virginia colony and the other colonies have. They're very autonomous. They have been used to being able to rule themselves. That's going to play a major role into how these events develop. So when you see events like March 5th here on the left, Boston Massacre, and then obviously in December of 1773, the Boston Tea Party, when you see them reacting to these new parliamentary laws and these orders, you see a different reaction in Massachusetts than you would see in Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina. All these colonies have different reactions, and they're all pretty negative, but none are as negative as what you see in Massachusetts. And a lot of that's based on the fact that these colonists have been able to rule themselves pretty much without a lot of world interference. The biggest thing, though, that really sets things off is the Boston Tea Party. That is when really Parliament decides to really step in and try to crack down on all these subversive acts that the colonists are doing. They're going to do four things. We call them the intolerable acts or the coercive acts. They're really four separate acts. One, they closed the port of Boston. No trade. So think about that. 75 to 8% of the commerce in Boston is based around that trade. Two, they dissolve the legislature. So that autonomy, gone. And they appoint a new world governor who's also the commander-in-chief of all British forces in the colonies, Thomas Gage. Three, they order that any British regulars, troops can be housed in private property. Now I'll say there's no instances or examples of troops being housed in people's private homes, but they are going to use the privately owned warehouses and such throughout town to put these troops up. And finally, kind of forgot the Quebec Act. Now the Quebec Act is like a big deal to us today, but what the Quebec Act did was give the colony of Quebec, recently won through the French-Indian War, a lot of autonomy themselves and also freedom of religion. Quebec is Catholic. Most of the American colonies as we know them were Protestant. And that's a really big deal in 1773, 74. So these four acts are passed. It's amazing when you look at reactions like George Washington. When George Washington hears about the Boston Tea Party, he's kind of like, well, they need to pay back the tea. This was a horrible thing that the colonists did. When Parliament passes those acts, Washington flips. And you see the colonies of Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, you see all these colonies coming together. So the opposite reaction of what Parliament wanted to accomplish is what they accomplished, which is bringing those colonies together. Here we go. So let's talk about the three men in Massachusetts that are really the ones leading the efforts here. Far left is John Hancock. You probably recognize him. He is the financier of this movement, as I call him. He's one of the richest men in North America. John Hancock is kind of on the bubble when it comes to being radical as found liberty until the coercive acts happened. The coercive acts also shut down that harbor, as I mentioned, and Mr. Hancock makes a lot of money off of what's coming in out of the harbor. He's really upset about the Tea Act that was passed beforehand, because the Tea Act shut down smuggling. The British authorities kind of looked away with all the smuggling going out of Boston. Hancock makes most of his money illegally smuggling things in and out of Boston. So John gets really upset when they start to enforce the law. The man on the right is Sam Adams. You know him through his wonderful beer, but Sam Adams, and in this time period, is the orator of the revolution. He's the heart and soul. He's the one that can get in front of a room like this and get you riled up. He was a failed tax collector. He is very anti-parliament, anti-British, because some parliamentary laws were passed when he was a child and put his dad in bankruptcy. So he's got a lot of anger held up in him. But he is the one that is the soul. So you have the financier, the soul, the one in the middle. We all should know, because where are we right now? Warren County. Dr. Joseph Warren. We're named after here. He's the brains. He is a very well-respected doctor. He's actually Gage's doctor, and Gage is in Boston, believe it or not, for a time. But he's more than a medical doctor. He is the one that is coordinating all those efforts in Boston. We call him the Sons of Liberty. There's lots of different names for the group, but we'll call them Sons of Liberty just to be easy. He is the one that's going to coordinate the spy network. He's going to be the one to coordinate the network of writers that we talked about later, Paul Revere, Wayne Dahl. Without him, this probably doesn't happen. And many historians believe if he hadn't gone down Bunker Hill, I know I just told you he died, so I just jumped ahead. He might have been the first commander of the Army around Boston, not George Washington. So our good friend Christian Restigna would argue that, right, Bruce? Right. So April 19th doesn't just happen out of a vacuum, folks. There's lots of different things going on. After the coercive acts were passed, Gage arrives. British regulars arrive. 4,000 are in Boston. When you put 4,000 British regulars in the city of 15,000, bad things are going to happen. And Gage is trying to clamp down on this military spirit that these colonies have. Far left is still standing today. That is the Massachusetts Colonial Powder Magazine. It's in modern-day Somerville, Massachusetts. On September 1st, 1774, Gage is going to order troops out to the powder magazine to confiscate the leftover powder in that magazine. He believes it's the king's powder. The people around Cambridge, Massachusetts believe it's their powder. Gage is able to take the powder, bring it back into Boston, but within hours, about 8,000 militiamen show up in Cambridge. So Gage knows now that he's got a bigger problem than he expected. Within hours in 1774, if you get 8,000 men together quickly, you know that your opponent has a really good planned out information network. So Gage starts to really look for more powder and guns, because he knows these colonials are looking to create a military force. In the middle here is Portsmouth, New Hampshire. This is Fort William and Mary. In December 1774, Gage sends out a relief force to take the powder and guns that are held at Fort William and Mary. At the time, in December of 74, he has 6 British soldiers manning that fort. I said that right, 6 British troops are in that fort, holding that fort. When Dr. Joseph Warren hears about Gage sending a relief force up there, he sends Paul Revere up on his first ride. You guys probably didn't know about Paul Revere's first ride. Revere will ride to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, let the local officials know that the regulars are on their way. They will actually attack the fort. John Sullivan, later fame of the war, will be one of the commanders of the militia units going against Fort William and Mary. Shots are fired. They fire on the fort. There's hand-to-hand combat. Luckily, no one's killed. But really, the people in New Hampshire can argue the first shots of the Revolutionary War happened in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. They are able to confiscate about 200 barrels of gunpowder, several dozens of artillery pieces before Gage gets his force up there. They get to the fort, nothing is left. And finally, to the right is a modern monument to Salem, the Salem or Leslie's Retreat. This is in February of 1775. This is the North River, not the North River of Concord, but the North River of Salem, Massachusetts. There's lots of North Rivers around Boston. This is February 26, 1775. Gage gets word that there are 4 cannon being stored in Salem and being retrofitted. These may be the cannon that were stolen from Gage in Boston. Previously to that, 4 cannon in Boston were stolen by the colonists, the Sons of Liberty. And Gage is really trying to find these guns. He gets word that they're in Salem. They are in Salem. They're in a blacksmith shop foundry just north of the North River. So Gage sends a British force up there to recover these guns. They get to the river here. There's a drawbridge. The militia pull up the drawbridge. Guns are levied. It's really tense. This is like a couple of hours of just the civilians there yelling at them, calling lobster backs, throwing rocks at them. It's lucky no shots were fired. A minister steps in and creates a compromise, basically saying if you lower the bridge, if you march to that foundry, will you leave? Unless he says, yes, those are my orders, I'm going to follow my orders as they're given to me. So the British troops will cross the bridge, get to the foundry. Guess what's been taken away by then? The cannon. There's no cannon there. They use those couple of hours to get those out of there. Leslie goes there, follows his orders, and goes back to Boston. I bring these up because if you are a 17, 18-year-old British soldier who's far away from home and you're being harassed in the city of Boston, and all these instances are when you know as you go out of Boston, the people you're trying to put down are ready to fire at you and take aggressive action, it's going to lead you to be very stressful and very tense. And just keep that in mind as we get to April 19th. Let's talk about April 19th. This here on the left is Thomas Gage. As I said, he's not just the governor of Massachusetts, he's also the commander of all British forces in North America. The man to his right is Francis Smith, Lieutenant Colonel. Smith is going to be given the command of about 800 men to leave out of Boston on April 18th to confiscate cannon and gunpowder that Gage knew were being held in Concord. Concord, Massachusetts, about 20 miles west of Boston, was the headquarters of the new Massachusetts Provincial Congress. That is the new legislature that the colonists in Massachusetts had set up illegally when Gage arrives and shuts down the other legislature. Gage wants to get Smith across the Charles River as quick as he can and up to Concord around noon, get there maybe around 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 to noon. Find the guns that he's looking for. They believe Colonel James Barrett, who's one of the militia leaders in Concord, has these guns at his farm. They're right, he did. He had them there. So whoever Gage's informant is was pretty good. Get the force across the Charles River, get them out to Concord, get the guns, get the gunpowder, get back to Boston. Seems pretty easy, right? Well, it doesn't happen that way. Gage only tells a few people this plan, and we have no idea. I know Hollywood would tell you that Dr. Warren was with Gage's wife. You don't know that. Makes for a good story. But Warren does have an informant somewhere, and he finds out about this. And he sends, of course, we know the story about the 2 lanterns in North Church. He sends Paul Revere across the Charles River to go up and ride out to Concord and spread the word. And of course, poor William Dawes, who we've all forgotten about because he had no poem written about him, crosses down south and does the same. Keep in mind, as these riders go out, they'll go to a town. Let's say they go to Roxbury, down the bottom or south. They're going to meet 4 other riders who are going to go out, and 4 other riders. So you can have dozens and then hundreds of riders spread across all New England in just 12 hours. And what's their job? Their job is to go to every little local community, get the militia on their town green, get them formed up, and report for duty. And this is happening all night. So as these British soldiers are crossing the Charles River, there's a little bit of a hiccup. There's not enough boats to get them across all at once. So the boats take half across, the other half have to stand there. The tide comes in, the British soldiers right about staying in water up to their knees at Lexington Point, wait for those boats to go back and get the other half of the men back across. So what's happening? These guys are heading out, and the British soldiers are just standing right here, waiting to go. And as they take off, what do they hear as they march? They hear the riders, they hear church bells, they hear guns going off, which are calling militiamen to their local rallying points. These soldiers know, and Smith knows within hours, this is not a secret mission anymore. He has kind of a meeting with some of his officers to say, all right, what do we do? And Smith is an old officer. He goes, my order is to go. And some of his other officers are like, well, we're 4 hours behind, and we're clearly not on a secret mission anymore. They continue to move forward. What Smith does do is he'll separate his force. He'll put his light infantry in the front and get them to push as quickly as they can to Concord, while the rest of the column comes up. So his column is broken up a little bit. About 200 men in the front, and about 600 coming up behind him. He's trying to get to Concord as fast as he can. He's racing sunlight, and now he knows he's also racing all these guys riding. Let's talk about Lexington. Here we are, a great little town, Lexington. If you haven't been to Lexington, Massachusetts, go. They do a great job interpreting this story. It's one of my favorite spots to go visit that relates to American history. Early April 19th, around midnight, or 12:01, Paul Revere says 12:05, Revere will arrive in Lexington. And in Lexington, just north of here at the Hancock Clark House, is where Sam Adams and John Hancock were spending the night. Revere and most of the patriots riding around believe that the objective of the British column isn't Concord for the powder and the guns. It's for Hancock and Adams. Gage does have orders that he can capture Hancock and Adams. But Gage, there's no evidence that we know of that Gage actually, that's the mission. Gage writes specifically, the mission is to get the guns and the powder. But they don't know that. So Revere rides Lexington first before on the Concord. Lets Adams and Hancock know, you gotta get out of here. Of course, keep in mind, Paul Revere does not say the British are coming, because what? They're all British. Don't forget that. They're all British. The regulars are out, is what we like to say today. And of course, that doesn't go well with the poem, right? But hey, my son came home from 4th grade history and said the British are coming. I'm just glad the teacher talked about it, right? So as Revere gets there, he warns Hancock, warns Adams. They're debating, what do we do, what do we do, what do we do? Hancock wants to stay and fight. As the regulars are coming up, Adams and Hancock take off. Hancock starts to go back toward the Lexington Green, where Parker's Lexington militia is set up, and Adams pulls him and says, John, we are for the cabinet, not for the field. Basically, it's on Hancock. Our role is in government. Our role is not out there. Keep in mind, Hancock wanted Washington's job too later on. He was kind of upset that they named Washington commander of the Continental Army and not him. So that you can kind of see that here. Adams is trying to pull him back and say, no, we're more effective someplace else. What's Parker's militia doing on the Green that morning? What they're doing has been debated. We have lots of great historians in Massachusetts. My good friend Alex Kane could talk to you about 10 hours about why Parker's militia is on the Green. But generally speaking, they're there just to show force. They're there to protect private property. There's been lots of rumors that the regulars are going to come out and burn homes and burn private property. Parker has no intention to fight the regulars that morning. That's why he's here, not blocking. This is the road from Boston, Cambridge to Concord, right here. He's not blocking the road. He's just trying to show force. But the regulars don't know that, and the regulars cannot just march by and leave about 80 men on their flank. So the light infantry arrives, they come onto the Green, there's lots of yelling back and forth, throw down your arms for Parker's men. Parker's debating on what to do. We don't think Parker says the famous line that's on the monument, if they win a war, let it begin here. Parker did not want to fight the regulars that way. And so as he looks at the situation, Parker decides to start to order his men to disperse, go home. We've done what we said we're going to do. Let's go home. At some point, at this moment, a shot goes off, and we have no idea where that shot is from. Was it a misfire? A lot of historians think it's from over here at Buckman Tavern. Maybe one of the spectators was there trying to get things moving. But as soon as that shot goes off, those regulars level their muskets and fire. And it's pretty bloody. 8 Lexington men are killed, 10 are wounded. Mr. Harrington the story is Harrington climbs up and dies on the steps in front of his wife and kid. That's not true. He does die here. So he does die within sight of his home. Only 1 British soldier is wounded. It takes a while for the officers of this light infantry to get kind of command and control. They did not want this to happen either. But when you're there in that situation, you look at the months of buildup, and then one shot goes off, you don't know who fired it, it's hard to get that under control. Sam Adams would write the very next day that this was what a glorious morning for America. So you know exactly what Sam Adams wanted to have happen on this day. So now, what do you do if you're Smith? Blood has been shed. Again, he continues on the Concord, and it's now around 8:30, so the sun is up. He's supposed to be in Concord soon, and he's way behind. He does send letters back to Gage, letting him know what's going on. Gage will start to send a relief force out to kind of help Smith later. They won't get there until later this afternoon, but Smith knows that he's got a relief force behind him somewhere to help him out. He continues westbound and toward Concord. This is a very famous sketch done by Amos Doolittle. He was not there April 19th. He does arrive a few days later. He's a Connecticut militiaman. He's an artist. He'll go around interviewing civilians and the militia that were involved. And he'll draw this famous drawing of what took place the morning of April 19th. So we're up to Concord. I'm getting there, John. They get to Concord. All those military stores that were there are where? Gone, right? They've been taken away. But they still, the regulars don't know that. So what they really are looking to do, the town of Concord is south of my map here, all right? This is the famous North Bridge, and I'm sure all of you have heard about, the shot heard around the world. And over here is Colonel Barrett's farm. This is where Gage believes all those cannon were being held. So that's the objective. The town has military stores, but he wants those cannon. And he hasn't told, by the way, he hasn't told his boss in London he lost 4 cannon yet. We've all been there with our parents, right? Try to fix the problem before we get to talk about it. But so the regulars come out to Barrett's farm, but they leave some men behind. They need this bridge to get back. Okay? As this is going on, just north of here, and this is the National Park, the visitor center of the National Park's right here. You ever been up there? As this is going on, hundreds of militiamen are gathering up here from around the different towns and communities around Concord. Now they've gotten word that not only are the regulars here, they've shot at us and they've murdered 8 men in Lexington. Actually, one report is they murdered all of them. So you see how news spreads today. It spreads the same way back then. It just gets exaggerated. So the Americans are watching, they're just not sure what to do. Do we really move forward? Do we try to take this bridge? And soon they see smoke rising from the town of Concord. Because the regulars are in town burning tents. They're not burning houses. One house does catch on fire in Concord, but the regulars put the fire out. They're piling up the tents, they're piling up anything they can find that could be used by an army, and they're burning it. But these men don't know that. They just see smoke rising. This is their home. One man yells out to Colonel Barrett, "Are you going to let them burn the town?" And Barrett, at that point, who's in command of this militia force, says, "Well, we have to go." So he has about 400 men. They're going to come down in column. They're going to approach the bridge. They're going to get right to the bridge. The regulars who were guarding the bridge are going to start pulling back to the other side of the bridge. They're going to pull up the planks of the bridge so they can't cross over. At some point, one of the regulars will fire a shot. The story is he thought that he heard the order to fire. So once he fires, the rest of the regulars fire, killing a man named Isaac Davis of Acton, who is one of the leaders of the militia. He's shot right through the head. And another man named Hosmer from Acton goes down as well. And the Americans, for the first time, this is why the poem is written about the shock around the world, because the Lexington militia were leaving the field when they were fired on. This is the first time the Americans are in battle line firing at the British. So Lexington and Concord are arguing constantly about where the war started, so you have to give a look at both sides. 3 British are killed, 9 are wounded, 2 Americans are killed, and 4 are wounded. And interestingly enough, after this, okay, the American militia is going to pull back up here, and the British regulars are going to pull back just on the other side of the bridge. And they're just going to kind of sit there in shock. What about these guys? They are able to come back and cross. And the American militia let them cross. I think, and it sounds crazy if you want to study this as a military action, you would think there's no way they should let them cross. Think about what just happened, right? This is a huge event, and these men, Colonel Barrett, know it. And so they're just kind of in shock. They do allow this regular troop to cross back to the bridge. Now, one thing happens at the North Bridge that sets the stage for the rest of the day. One of the regulars who was wounded, he's mortally wounded, he's laying in the bridge. At some point, an American hits him with a hatchet and scalps him. When these regulars come back and see that, what's the word now? Americans are scalping us. And it's hard to put that into 21st century terms, but 18th century terms, that's a different level of violence for them. And so now the regulars are saying the Americans are murdering us and they're scalping us. So you can see these stories, right? These stories are expanding and being exaggerated as we go along. Smith decides he's got to get out of Concord. Here's another Amos Doolittle image of the town of Concord. This is Smith here. You can see the British regulars marching through Concord. The North Bridge is off to the right. And of course, this is the famous North Bridge today rebuilt. The British, for those who haven't been there, are located here. This photograph is taken from the American militia line. This is the North Bridge. Now you have to get back. You got 20 miles to get back. And now, anyone with a gun within 20 miles of this knows exactly what's going on and knows exactly where to go, knows exactly what to do. And Smith knows that. So here's Concord. This is the National Park Service map. Okay, here's North Bridge. He's got to basically retrace his steps all the way back to Boston. And as they start off, a place called Merriam's Corner, they instantly are getting hit by militia that are arriving from these local towns and communities. Keep in mind, the militia are hearing British are burning the town, they've murdered our men, and so now it's on. He's got 20 miles to get back. Places like Merriam's Corner, Brooks Hill, Bloody Angle, Fisk Hill, Parker's Revenge. These are all places where the British are going to be kind of in different parts of the road, condensed down to areas that the militia can hit them. Smith is not a dumb officer. He's got flankers out, but this is rough terrain, and at certain points you have to cross creeks and waterways, you have to bring your men across the bridge. And so that's where the Americans, and they're from here, right? They know this area, so they know where the hills are, they know where the woodlots are, they know where the rocky outcroppings are, and they're using that to their advantage. So British soldiers are being hit all the way back. They get to Lexington. It's at Lexington where that relief column that's on its way is there. And so there's some relief for them there. Lord Percy is in charge of that relief column. He also has 2 cannon with him. They start firing cannon at the militia that are forming around Lexington. That kind of runs them off, but they know that's not going to hold them off all day. So Percy makes a very important decision in Lexington. Smith has been wounded, so Percy's kind of overall command now. Percy decides that he's hearing how the American militia are using the houses and the barns along the road to fire at his men. So he orders his men, they are now able to burn private property all along the road. So what the Americans thought were happening is actually now going to happen. You can see why Percy would make that decision. These houses are being used to shoot at his men. So from Lexington all the way back, you're going to have a level of warfare that many of these soldiers have never seen before, and obviously these untrained, well, semi-trained militia have never done before either. The British are going to burn houses. This is hand-to-hand combat. This is really savage, especially at a place called Monotony today, which is modern-day Arlington, Massachusetts. A couple of really quick stories about Monotony that I love to talk about just because it just shows the savagery of the day. A place called Cooper Tavern. It's a tavern along the Bay Road there, leading back to Boston. There are two older men enjoying a drink called Flip in the tavern. They hear about the regulars coming. They're told to get out. They say, hey, we're going to finish our drinks first. Sounds like something I would do. But bad decision. Mrs. Cooper, who was the tavern keeper, she leaves. When she returns, she would write the next day. This is one of the coolest things about April 19th. It's probably the best documented Revolutionary War action in the entire war, because the Massachusetts Provincial Congress interviews almost everyone involved. We have those accounts. Pretty amazing. And the British do the same with their men. He would write, the King's regular troops under the command of General Gage, upon their return from blood and slaughter, which they had made at Lexington and Concord, fired more than 100 bullets into my home where I dwelled and worked. Through the doors and windows, 2 aged gentlemen, Winship and Wyman, were immediately most barbarously and inhumanely murdered by them, being stabbed through in many places, their heads mangled, skulls broke, and their brains blasted on the wall and the floors of my house. I hope the drink was good. Drink. This is Samuel Whittemore. He is my hero right here. This is a more modern painting of him with his monument along the Bay Road. Sam Whittemore is 80 years old. Finds out what's going on. He grabs 3 guns, 2 pistols, and a musket, and he kills 3 British soldiers. Of course, he's out. By that point, the regulars converge around him. They shoot him in the head. He's bayoneted several times and left for dead. He lived to 96. That is a man right there. I mean, that's crazy. We're going to talk about, I don't know what else to say about that. Another historic site, I'm really big in getting people to go visit these places. This is the Jason Russell House Museum. This is one of the few buildings left in Monotony that relate to April 19th. Jason Russell was about 60 years old, an older gentleman, somewhat infirm, his wife said, and he hears what's going on. The Bay Road that the regulars are marching on is just to the right here off the picture. He grabs his guns, he joins the militia. Unfortunately, Mr. Russell will die on the front steps of his home. That's actually, he does die on the front steps of his home. He sent his wife away. She returns a few hours later, and she'll find him in the kitchen, which is this room right here. She will arrive a few hours later. She finds 12 dead militiamen in her kitchen, including her husband. So you think about this is becoming a personal thing here for a lot of these people. Eventually, the British will make it back to Charlestown. Their goal was Cambridge and Boston, but as more militia arrived, this is the road right here, folks, from Concord's over here, Monotony's right here. As you can see, they're coming back. There's militia arriving. They cut off their route, a place called Watson's Corner. Percy makes the decision to go to Charlestown because he knows he's got the British Navy there to help him. And they get back around 8 o'clock in the evening. These regulars have been up for about 27 hours, thereabouts. Been shot at for the last 12, worn out. But what happens next is amazing. Literally within hours, nearly 20,000 militiamen converge on Boston. I mean, just think about those riders. They just keep going, and these men are grabbing their muskets and their guns, and they're heading into Cambridge. The total casualty list, really quick, was 73 killed British, 174 wounded, and 26 missing. The Americans, they had about 49 killed and 39 wounded. So not big numbers when you think of battles, but big numbers when you think this is the first time blood's been shed. This is a map showing how the word spreads up and down the colonies. We're right here in the valley. Probably get word here around April 25th, thereabouts. We know that Williamsburg here is on the 30th. Of course, the story they're going to hear is going to be exaggerated. in a major propaganda coup for the Sons of Liberty and Patriots, the first word of April 19th that gets to London is on John Hancock's ship. The next day they write an account. Hancock sends his ship to London. First word the king reads is the American account. Gage takes a couple of weeks to write his official after-action report, as a good officer would do. Takes weeks to get over there, so they don't get the British account until weeks afterwards, after the Americans get their account in. So that really kind of is, it really, you know, the king is sitting there going, what the heck's going on here? All right, let's dive into Bunker Hill, John. So here's the city of Boston. All right, here's Charlestown Neck. This is the town of Charlestown. Here's Cambridge. This is going to be the American kind of headquarters for all the forces coming in after April 19th. As I said, about 10 to 20,000 men are going to arrive. The numbers change around. They become under command of Artemus Ward, who's a militia general from Massachusetts at that point. Also, Gage is in Boston. He's been encouraged by the Navy to burn Roxbury, which is off here, burn Charlestown, but he's worried about that. He thinks that he's more worried about the Americans in the city. He's more worried about them uprising. So he's trying to keep the men in the city and protect them there. So he ignores the British call to burn these towns, which probably would have been a good idea. Also, arriving on May 25th, just a month later, are 4,000 reinforcements sent by the king. They were already on their way when word came of the fighting. Also, Gage really wanted those 4,000 men, but he also received General William Howe, Henry Clinton, and John Burgoyne. He probably would have rather had the men, not the extra brass. But these are men we talked about last night. For those who were there last night, they've become very influential British leaders as this war goes on. Gage is still in command, but now he's got advisors, right? We love advisors. Keep in mind, this is going on June 15th. Who's in command of the Continental Army in Philadelphia? George Washington, right? So these things are kind of happening simultaneously. Gage, working with Burgoyne, Howe, and Clinton, decide that they're going to come up with a plan to wipe out the rebellion by sending troops across the Charleston Neck, attacking Cambridge this direction, sending troops across the Boston Neck through Roxbury in this way, kind of giving them a pincer. And they have the plan in place. They're ready to go. They have it. They're ready. But unfortunately for them, on June 15th, the Massachusetts Provincial Congress orders the militia there in Cambridge to fortify Breed's Hill. Debate Breed's Hill, Bunker Hill in a few seconds. About 1,100 men are sent over the night of the 16th, and they will fortify the heights of Breed's Hill. This is a modern painting of that. When the British wake up that next day on the 17th, they say, well, they debate what to do. Do we keep on with our main attack? Howe argues we can't leave these men up here on this hill. We need to take them out. And here is Boston here, and this is the Charleston Neck, little town of Charleston. So real quick, the argument about Breed's Hill and Bunker Hill. So the orders to go to Breed's Hill. Prescott gets there, the engineer says, that's a horrible place to be. You really want to be on, back here real quick. You really want to be on Bunker Hill. It's a larger hill. It cannot be attacked in the rear by water. Breed's Hill, not as big, forward, and you can be exposed on your flank and rear. But Prescott, well actually Putnam would force the issue. Putnam says, well, the British won't see us back here. I want them to see us. So Breed's Hill happens. We have the Battle of Bunker Hill at Breed's Hill. So go with that. As the British wake up, they come up with a plan. Clinton wants to land men behind, just as the engineer warned. He wants to land men behind Breed's Hill and attack in the rear. Howe says, no, that's very dangerous. Amphibious assault is very dangerous, and we need to really this is a slight rise, and the Americans will run. And his actual quote is, the hill is open and of easy ascent, and in short, we should easily carry it. So Clinton's plan is scrapped, And the plan is to have Hal in command, the gauges overall, Hal's going to be field command, cross about 2,500 British soldiers, and take light infantry, attack the American line of what's called the rail fence. This is just a rail fence that the Americans are quickly going to try to add rocks and stones and everything else to it along Mystic River Beach here. And then the Grenadiers are going to be responsible for the one redoubt that's been built up here on top of Reed's Hill. The plan is not to just launch this frontal assault that we all think about, right? The plan is light infantry is going to come in, break this line, come in a flank, and as they're flanking the redoubt, the Grenadiers will come in and finish it off. That's the plan. Full set of plan. But it doesn't go that way, as we all know. There's only about room on the beach here for about 15-minute columns to attack because of the way the land is. And so the light infantry doesn't even make it close to the American line. They are mowed down. And as that goes on, of course, the Grenadiers go up. We've seen the very famous image here, them going up. And of course, the Americans are able to take their attention on the Grenadiers and mow them down as well. They fall back. Hal comes up with a new plan. Basically, no one's going to stop and fire. Don't load your muskets, bayonets. We're going to go in again. Unfortunately, for the Americans, they're running out of what? Ammunition. Right. Joseph Warren, who's been on the field, he came in that morning. He's been appointed a major general in the Massachusetts militia, but he's not serving in that role today. He just wants to be up front. Was trying to get powder and ammo up to the hill there, but it never arrives in time. So when that second assault happens, we'll use the same map. They will actually break the rail line, and the Grenadiers will actually overrun the redoubt here. Huge casualty numbers, worst numbers the British Army are going to suffer the entire war. Major Pitcairn, who's one of the leaders, will go down right in front of the redoubt. He'll die, and his son Thomas, who's also an officer, will die in his arms right here in front of the redoubt. Joseph Warren, who is the hero of the Revolution at this point, will go down in the back of the redoubt. There's a lot of debate about where, but he will be killed. His body will be mutilated by the British later on. He'll become a martyr for the cause. The Americans are swept off the field. So it's a British victory, but it's not, it's one of those victories, right? It's a Pyrrhic victory. There's a very famous quote by John Clinton: "A few more such victories would have surely put an end to the British dominion in America." 225 British are killed, 800 wounded. Of that, 100 commissioned officers are down. Huge. 128 Americans, 305 wounded. So it's a victory for the British, but not something that they can sustain long term. Talk about the noble train really quick. So because of the bloodshed, not a lot happens around Boston until Washington arrives, and Washington comes up with a plan with others. I want to just give Washington all the credit to move the guns from Fort Ticonderoga that were captured in May of '75, move those heavy guns over land all the way to Massachusetts and use them in the siege of Boston, put them in the American lines against the British. And so these are guns that are about 60 pieces of artillery, some weighing over a ton. These are big guns. This is an amazing feat. There's someone in this room that gives a great tour about this feat, right, Bruce? Yeah, but it's called Knox's Noble Train of Artillery, and it is an amazing feat. They're going to arrive in January of '76, and where they're going to put them is all around the perimeter of Boston, Roxbury, and Cambridge, but most importantly, they're going to put them in Dorchester Heights. And Dorchester Heights is kind of a little peninsula that sticks out, and it dominates the harbor of Boston and the town of Boston. On March 4th, they're going to start putting these guns up on Dorchester Heights. The ground's frozen. They can't dig entrenchments. They have to build the walls and carry the walls up to the heights. And Washington's there saying, remember the massacre. What's March 5th, the anniversary of? Boston Massacre. Washington wants those guns up on the 5th. He gets it, right? He gets the importance of that event. And so by March 5th, the guns are placed. When the British wake up, Hal will just be completely surprised by this feat. General Howard writes, "The rebels have done more in one night than my whole army could do in a month." Hal has plans to attack this, He wants to take this out. Washington, through his spy network, hears about it. He adds another 2,000 men to the heights, I guess 6,000 men to these heights, dozens of guns, and Howe decides that it's not a good idea to attack unless a winter storm hits, and he scraps his plan. He'll send Washington an unofficial note through back channels saying, hey, if you allow us to leave, we will not burn the town. And so Washington agrees, and on March 17th, the British Army, with 1,000 loyalist citizens with them, will leave Boston. You go to Boston today on March 17th, they celebrate. Not just St. Patrick's Day, they also celebrate Evacuation Day. It's an amazing feat for Washington and the Americans. Finally, just if you go up to Massachusetts today, go to Menotomy, please go to Menotomy and see the grave of John Russell, 11 of his friends who were killed in Menotomy. Just 2 years ago, just a few feet away, they put a monument to the 40 British regulars who are buried there also in a mass grave, close to each other. So I think it's very important to remember these places and remember the men of 75 and 76. Thank you. Time. 5 minutes for questions before he yanks me off the stage. Glenn, go ahead.
Dorchester Heights, we talked about it being critical in that force evacuation. From my understanding, Washington got outvoted in his council war that he actually wanted to try to attack Boston through the frozen waterways.
There are several times he wanted to do that. Yeah, Washington wasn't. He'd like to get input, and so but having that position fortified was a better decision, obviously. Yes, sir.
John Hancock, I think he's qualified to be commander.
You want to be a leader? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me repeat the question. Why does John Hancock think he's qualified to be commander-in-chief? I don't have a great answer for that. Hancock liked to be the center of almost everything he was involved in. You know, his intent was pure. I don't think he was doing it for really glory. But when Washington becomes commander, he writes. He's not very, and some of the people in the room notice his body language just changes. It's just like, all right, I guess I'm not the one. He doesn't really have any military experience other than serving in local militia, but not as an officer.
Did Hancock get most of his money through privateers and illegal trade?
The question is Hancock get most of his money through privateers and illegal trade? Yes. Yes. And that's why when the Tea Act, so when the Tea Act is passed, the Tea Act doesn't just tell you that you are being taxed for tea. Americans are okay to being taxed for tea, but they're having to buy their tea from the East India Company. It was a monopoly bill. And then they put money in that bill to enforce smuggling laws. That puts a crimp in Hancock's style. So Hancock he does make money legitimately, but most of this money is being made through privateer.
When did Robert Morris come in as a fighter?
Robert Morris comes in later on, after all these events. All in the back, orange hat.
Why cannot the British use the Royal Navy against Bunker Hill or Dorchester Heights?
So why did the British Navy use Bunker Hill? Why did the British Navy be used against Bunker Hill and Dorchester Heights? So they are used at Bunker Hill. I didn't go into that depth. I was running out of time. They bombed Charlestown. They burned it. They are firing on the American redoubt, so they are involved with the Battle of Bunker Hill. At Dorchester Heights, when the naval commander saw the guns on the ridge, he was saying, "I'm pulling my ships out of here." He didn't think he could take on.
They can't elevate their guns more than 10 degrees.
Right. Where's Glenn? That's Glenn somewhere. Last question in the back, and I'll be in the hallway if you need to ask me anything else. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm curious, for the British forces, what elements of it had experience from the French and Indian War? Why does it seem that the lessons tactically how to fight, maybe they were forgotten? It doesn't seem like the British really took into account the lessons of fighting in North America for those 7 years at this time.
So the question is the tactics. Why didn't the British learn from the French-Indian War to fight in a different way, basically? I will say this about, there are officers that were there. Gage is obviously involved in the French-Indian War, but a lot of the inline men are very, we say the British Army is the best army in the world, and it was, but they didn't, this is not their A troops that were sent over here at the beginning. And so these men are not well trained. I mean, they're trained, but not trained in what you're, the combat you're talking about. Now, they're gonna adjust as time goes on, right? But as far as April 19th goes, they didn't believe they were gonna get into a fight on April 19th. They were really ill prepared for what took place on the 19th. As far as Bunker Hill and Breeds Hill go, Howe believed that the Americans were gonna run. And that was his basis for his strategy that day. Thank you all very much. I'll be in the hall at
I was trying to.
Okay, thank you, Rob. We're gonna reconvene at 10 a.m. sharp, so if you'd like to take a break and see the merch outside and we'll refresh your drinks, we have some time for that. We'll see you back here at 10 a.m.